Afternoon, everybody, and we're absolutely delighted that you're joining us for another Jolly Learning webinar. And as we're halfway through the term and it's half term, we're hoping that you're managing to have a little bit of a rest, but also be able to participate with us today in the chat. Please have a look at all our e-commerce stores and websites for any information that you need. Before we start, there isn't a certificate with this webinar. It is for your information, so please enjoy it. And we would love you to ask questions all the way through. But before we get going with our official trainer, Irene, I'm just going to open up our presentation so that you can grab a piece of paper to write down things, or even get yourself a cup of tea or a bit of water as we start our presentation. So my name is Yvonne, and I'm the community manager and also content manager at Jolly Learning. And this is always the most nerve-wracking part when we start with the sharing. Isn't that right, Irene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So someone's raised their hand, so maybe we can address what we need to look at there. If someone could be just helping with questions at this stage as we get started. So again, we're going to be looking at how you can start your first lesson, and this can be a bit tricky. You may be familiar with a lot of things to do with synthetic phonics, but you know what? We're going to give you a guided tour, a really good work through. But just as you're settling yourself down, let's enjoy a little bit of jolly music. It's just lovely when we see everything in action. It's just absolutely
Yes.
yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so welcome to planning your first phonics lesson. And as I mentioned, Irene will be giving you a really good view of how everything goes together at a pace that works. And remember, that's really important. But before we start with Irene, let's have a look at exactly what's in the program. And as you know, that Jolly Phonics is actually validated by the Department of Education, and that's really important for you to know. It means we've got everything kind of right, so that everything is there, and all the resources and equally how you plan out, it's all been sorted out for you, and it's been validated. So it's ready to use to support your literacy implementation. And please have a look at us on social media. And we've got some great information coming out every week, but more than anything, pop into our shop and have a look at our fantastic resources. We're going to show you a little bit today, but there just isn't enough time to go through as much as we'd like to with how you can use everything. But maybe that can be another session. Training, please contact me or go through our official page in the website, and also any queries, I can help you. More than anything, let's meet our wonderful trainer. Now, Irene, I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about yourself, but you know, you're an official Jolly Phonics trainer. You're also a teacher, and you've also done incredible work throughout Africa. So briefly, just give us a little bit of an idea about how fantastic you are, Irene.
Thank you, Yvonne. Hi, everybody. My name is Irene. I'm in Uganda. I'm Ugandan. I've used Jolly Phonics for over 20 years. This year and last year, I've been teaching reception, and we are on a roll with Jolly Phonics. I've used it for a couple of years, many, many years, and it's worked really well with our students and continues to work well. And I'm so impressed with how it has been improved, and I'm so happy and excited to share my experience with everybody.
Yeah, and it was really important getting Irene on this webinar because she is just amazing at how she can use multisensory resources, but also songs, body movement. And I've seen you in action, Irene, and you're fantastic. And I have to say that Irene comes from the teaching pedagogy that if you haven't got the resources, you can make it up into a song, you can make it up into an action, and this is perfect to suit the program because I've seen you get teachers up and moving and showing all the possibilities of using the program to its fullest.
Yep.
So I'm going to let you get started, Irene, if you'd like to go into screen share.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, I'll explain that Irene's going to be going through how we start off with the first sounds and then moves on. It will also be an opportunity for you to join in with questions in the chat. And if it's a really long question, we'll probably keep it to the end. But if it's something that we can fit in while we're doing the session, we'll gladly answer that straight away.
Okay.
Here we go. So over to you, Irene.
Okay, I hope we're all ready and I'm going to get started. Welcome to planning your first phonics lesson. And let's see. Okay, so what is in the session today? We're going to talk about the Jolly Phonics program. I'm going to walk through with a few tips and ideas of how you can use the Jolly Phonics resources and using Jolly Phonics with also other class resources you may have. So why would you use Jolly Phonics? Now, Jolly Phonics is a very fast-paced program that allows schools to achieve best results. It's flexible and it's easy to implement in class and very exciting. The children love it. It has lessons plans that you can use and also adapt to your own needs. And it's developed by teachers for teachers. So it makes it even easier because the people who develop it are also teachers, so they know how it works and they've looked at it thoroughly. So what would be your benefits? It's very adaptable. It's a well-structured program. You move on from one set to another. It has a wide range of resources. If you don't have them, you can still make as many resources as you can. It's a great foundation for children with English as a second language, but also English as an additional language, and also children with learning needs. I've used it for children with autism, and it worked fabulously, amazingly. And every year, my autistic children are my top readers, and I use Jolly Phonics. So it's something you have to enjoy and lean on. So Jolly Phonics has 5 basic skills. Now, the first skill is the children learn the letter sounds. So introduce the letter sounds. Then they learn the letter formation, which is how to write the sound. Then you go on to blending, which is putting the sounds together or joining them up to make a word. Like if you have the sound k and ant, then you put them together, you say k, at, and you make the word cat. And also it allows children to identify sounds in words. They should be able to hear them and to, oh, there's a sound and in the word. But also we teach tricky words that are commonly known as sight words for many people. But we teach sight words and tricky words in Jolly Phonics, and we help the children understand why they're tricky, because you teach them how to blend and then hear words that may not be blendable, but then they have to learn those words because they're very common in their reading.
Just before we move on to this slide, a question we often get asked about this
Yes.
before is, do I teach these 5 skills individually? Now, that's a question we often get asked.
No, you teach them, you combine them. Like in a lesson, you teach all those skills. So you don't teach them individually, but they do come into all the lessons you do, and they can be repeated and revised. You can review them every time you're moving on. So you teach them together, not in isolation.
And another thing worth mentioning is, as Irene has just said, all of those 5 skills are in the resources, and you can highlight to lesser or greater degree what you need to use. Isn't that correct, Irene?
That's correct. That's correct. Very good. Should I move on?
Please, yes.
Okay, so the pace of teaching, Jolly Phonics is fast-paced, but we teach the 7 in those 7 different sets, as you can see. Set number 1 has art, ip, in. That's the first set we teach, and then we continue with the other sets. I'm hoping everybody can see the screen so I don't go through every set, but we do a set at a time, And each time we're moving forward, we are reviewing the previous sounds we've taught, and then we move on to a new sound. We keep going back and forth. Thank you for those thumbs up. That means you're seeing everything and you're listening. Really cool. Very nice. So those are the 7 sets. And then ideally, you would teach one sound a day, but it also depends on where you are and what circumstances you have. For example, I teach a sound every other day. That means I teach one sound today, and then I do, because of my timetable. If I had a free timetable, I'll teach a sound every day. But because I work with a timetable where I have to do other things, so I teach one sound every other day. That means I do 3 sounds a week. And then I make sure that we work with the sounds that I've taught. And please avoid asking children to read words or sounds that you haven't taught yet. I make sure that we teach those sounds. And once I've done set 1, we can then blend with that and do some decodable words. And then we move forward and review and continue reviewing. Okay? So what resources do you need to get started? So we're getting into the first lesson. So what resources do you need? And this is how it goes. You need a handbook. I have this handbook. This is my Bible, sort of. It has everything you need. It has all the sounds. It has the planning. It has worksheets you would work with, as they will show you later in the plan. But it's a fantastic resource for teachers. It makes your life easy because everything is in the handbook.
Yeah,
But we
and
also
Irene,
have,
sorry
yeah.
to interrupt you. We're getting lots of people asking questions about the letter sounds per week. And it's good here to just clarify that, as Irene said, you can do one lesson sound a day, but ideally it has to fit around how many classes you have per week. And also the good thing is the lesson plans, just like Irene has shown you, you can adapt those to fit
Yep.
your lessons. So
Yes.
please be aware it's a totally adaptable program
Yes,
that
it
can
is.
fit around your ages and stages, and also the amount of lessons you have. So thank you,
Yes.
all the notes there at the bottom with questions coming through. Back to the
Okay.
lovely Irene.
Very good. So I did show you the handbook, but we also have the teacher's guide, which is in pictures there. I have a black and white copy of the teacher's guide. So the teacher's guide, it's good for you because it shows you how the lesson will progress. It shows you, it's for you, the teacher, to show you how you can move the lesson step by step in a very good structure. It also has everything you need to teach your lessons, but the handbook also has photocopiable pages. I hope it's on the next slide, I'm sure. It's on the next slide. Yeah, the phonics handbook gives you a good introduction, has lesson plan, easy format for early learners, but you can also photocopy many pages in there. All the sounds are over there. And then you can usually photocopy and make a little workbook for my children, and they love everything on it. You're able to blend, they're able to practice the letter formation. They do some coloring, they ask some questions. They also segment, which is really lovely. So that's the phonics handbook, and the teacher's guide is there. It's also easy. It has plans in it, as I've said. It can be used with Jolly Classroom, a recent resource, which is really cool. I love it. And it works well with the handbook. So if you have both the handbook and the teacher's guide, that will be very nice. So in the teacher's guide, as I've said, it shows you which flashcards to use if you're reviewing. It shows you how to introduce the lesson. It shows you what to look out for, what to do with letter formation, how to explain to the students, the children, how the letter is formed and how to practice. It also talks about blending, shows you how you can blend, which words, everything is in there. And also how to segment, which is identifying the sounds in the words. Everything is there. And it also has a workbook. It will tell you a word book, sorry, not a workbook, but a word book telling you you can use this word, you can use this word, you can use this word. But as we said, it's very adaptable. You can also add more things of your own, more words, and that makes it really nice. And then we also have the pupils book. I think it's coming in. Yeah, no. But the picture is over there. There are 3 books, book 1, 2, and 3. In the pictures, I also have some over here that I use. I'm sure you won't see them very well, but I have the 3 books that the pupils use, and they're also very nice. They work very well with the handbook, and you can pace it with your lesson, and the children love them. They can come back to them to revise and do much more. And as I said, as you move forward with the sound, keep moving back, keep moving forward, because all the children are learning at a different rate. And that's what makes Jolly Phonics really nice, because as I will explain when we go ahead, it's multisensory. Some children want to touch, some want to do the action, some want to sing, some learn it as soon as you introduce it. So that's what makes it really, really good. So I'm going to demonstrate how we could probably teach the first sound. I'll give you an example. So teaching the first sound in Jolly Phonics, that sound, I don't know if you can see my book. Let me show you. We have a big book. I use this big book, and it's the same as the picture you see. It's finger phonics here on the side. So what will you do in the lesson? So you introduce the letter sound, and then you show the children the action, and then you show them the picture, as you can see that picture on that page there that says finger phonics 1. And then we also do the letter formation and pencil grade. Okay, so how do we do that? So we start with a story. So every sound has a story. And also the first sound over here, let me open my story. All of them have a story. Sorry, here we go. So when you tell the story, the children engage with the story, but the story is about the picture that you're seeing on that page. And then you can ask the children, what do you see in the picture that has the sound? Maybe the sound is at the beginning, maybe at the end, or, oh, they just know a sound. And then you do a word with a sound. It could be their name. It could be anything. Then I want to look at the picture, bigger picture. So before I move to the bigger picture, I just wanted to say the words in the picture are designed specially for the children to hear the sound with ease, which could be at the beginning, as I said, in the middle, or in the end. And when you do the story, the children will remember and it will be easy for them. So that is the picture. Now I want to move to the story, which is over here. I would like to read the story because you can't see this book properly. It's so big. But in the story, there is Sam has a dog called Samson. One sunny morning, Sam takes Samson for a walk down by the stream. While Samson sniffles about in the grass, Sam looks around. He sees a swan swimming past a snail. He also spots a toadstool, some spiders, a small mouse, and a bird. On her nest, Sam picks up a stick and throws it for Samson to fetch. Samson chases after it. Now, after you've read the story, you may want to ask the children, did you hear anything with a sound in it? If you guys had anything, you could just type it into the chat and say, oh, I had this, I had this, I had this. And sometimes the children will tell you something that's even not in the story, but it has that sound. So we will accept that as well. So we begin with the story, as I read the story. Then after that.
Irene, can we go back to the big picture of the story?
Yes, there we go.
I'm going to see if our attendees,
yes,
our lovely teachers, are paying attention, just like they would in the class.
Okay.
We do this, don't we, to check what children do.
We do that a lot.
Yeah, because we have this fabulous image there. And as Irene has said, we're making that association with what I hear and what I see. But also, children get really engaged, don't they, Irene, when they can talk
They
about
do.
things they know. So also, to get children warmed up, we sometimes ask them things like, can you see something that is red? Can you see? Now, Irene, just imagine you're 4 years old sitting in my class.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you see something that is big?
Oh, yes, it can.
Okay. Can you see something that is really small?
Mm-hmm.
What can you see,
Mm.
Irene?
I can see a snail.
A
It's
snail.
really
Now, of
small.
course, children, if they've got English as a second language, will
Yeah.
answer in their mother tongue because they don't know the word yet. And it's
Yes.
a great opportunity for us to say, yes, you're right, even though it's in their mother tongue, because
Mm.
it probably is right, and give them the English word so that
Yeah.
they can help build up their vocabulary. But Irene, you've probably used this in your class for so many cross-curricular themes as well.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
let's see if our lovely teachers are paying attention and joining in the chat box. How else could
Let's
you
see.
use? How else could you use this wonderful image, especially to help with vocabulary? Let's see what they're saying in the chat box. Right,
Okay.
let's see. So we've got people who are saying, "Oh, this guy's smart." What things have spots? That's true. Observation. How does the boy feel? So we're looking at emotions.
Yes.
Also, how does the boy look when he sees the snake? So we can talk about social and emotional learning and lots
Mm-hmm.
more messages. We could be talking about the climate. We could be talking about a good one here about adjectives, but we're not really teaching adjectives, but we can
No,
still
not yet.
talk
Yes, but we
and
can.
use
Yeah.
them.
Mhm.
Where do we think they are? Can you give me something beginning with S? And also, what season? That's a really good one, isn't it, Irene?
Yes.
Then we can revise clothes, and also parts of the body,
Yeah.
colors, climate, where they are, and
Mm-hmm.
also the animals. How many animals there have four legs and how many animals have two?
And none.
That also is a really good observation. So
Yeah,
as Irene has said, and I imagine your children love the stories, and the
they do.
stories are a great opening. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll let Irene go back to using Jolly Classroom because as she showed you the story about, if we go forward a little bit, Irene,
Forward. Over there.
that's it. When you go to Jolly Classroom, we looked at how we have the story, and Irene will continue now about how we can use Jolly Classroom with the story.
Okay. So as I did the story already, where's my there we go. So as you can see, we can then highlight the things that have sounds in them. As you can see, there's Sam, there's Samson, and it is sunny. And then we moved on and say there's a stream and sniffles and a swan. Has anybody spotted that beautiful swan? And the swan is actually swimming past a snail on a stone. And he also spots a toadstool with all those words and spiders, small mouths. So you can highlight all the words that have the sound S in them, but you can also connect them to the picture. You can go, and that is Jolly Classroom, which is really nice. It's a new thing, but I'm loving it because it's online. It's a platform. It's very similar to the handbook, but a platform. Yeah, so then you can then go on to show where those things are. As you see, sunny, I'm pointing to the sun over there, and there's another arrow pointing down to the swan. We could have another one going to the stream and much more. You can do a lot with Jolly Classroom. It's amazing. And you may want to ask, is Jolly Classroom and Jolly Phonics the same? That's another question that people ask, Yvonne. And you know, Jolly Classroom is a platform that uses Jolly Phonics. So they're similar. It's just that one is a platform and one is the Jolly program that we use, but they're pretty much the same and amazingly nice. So also with Jolly Classroom, you may use the different tools. There's so many tools on Jolly Classroom, but you may use this tool to just zoom in and zoom out so the children see clearly where Snakey is. My class loves Snakey so much, so much, because I have a puppet as well. And it looks like in every page, Snakey is either hiding somewhere and they keep looking for Snakey, Snakey, Snakey. So you may want to zoom into Snakey, you may want to zoom into the swan, or any other thing. And that is on Jolly Classroom, which is really, really an amazing tool, I can say. So, yeah. Should I move on? Yeah.
The point that Irene's made is also they can work really well together, the paper-based resources and the digital app, and they can complement each other really well so that all your children with their diverse learning styles are getting the concept point given to them in different ways. So again, we've accommodated children who may need that additional support, but also that you need to have evidence and consolidation using the pupils' books. So it's a great wraparound teaching approach for your children.
It is.
It's great,
I love it.
isn't it? The kids love this. And
yes.
The I Spy tool keeps children fascinated because they don't know where you're going to take it. So again, it's great for engagement. So carry on, Irene. We're doing really well with our lesson.
Okay. So you may want to ask yourself, how long should your first lesson take? It could take 15 minutes or 20 minutes. It all depends. And usually if you're a school that differentiates, you may want to do the first 15 minutes or 20 with your whole class. Then you may want to break down into smaller groups to make sure you meet everybody's needs. And you may say, what if I don't have all the resources you're using? You can use local materials. Uganda is a third world country. We use a lot of local materials in school. We take a walk around. We say, we're taking a walk. We want to spy for everything that begins with a sound. We're going to listen out into other classes while teachers are teaching. Do we hear anything with a sound? So you can use anything. You can use any resources you can. But I know that also there's a lot of information online that you can use if you don't have the real books. But you can go on with anything. And then there's a question that you may ask yourself, what if all the children are not engaged? In my experience, usually when I'm doing Jolly Phonics, the children are super engaged. But if they're all not engaged, you can break up your class into smaller classes. You try to do that. But if you give it a good pace and their actions, their songs, there's so many pictures to look at. You have your flashcards. There's so many flashcards to show. I always have my flashcards handy and ready. The lesson will be very exciting. Don't keep it too long, not too short. You have to pitch it right. And as soon as you see that your children are not engaged, you may want to work in smaller groups or redirect them into something else and then come back. There's also another question that could come up. Is the lesson delivery the same for older and younger children? Pretty similar, but what I would say, older children learn faster. It's so easy. It's like, it's snappy. You're like, ding, 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 and they're getting it very quickly. The younger children may need a little bit more time, more review for you to move back and forth. You could even pair them up and things like that. Okay, moving on. So we're still teaching sound, and that is the action there. So when you introduce the sound, you want to show them the action. Usually I get to my side, you won't see me properly to show that sound. Or if you're very good with showing opposite, you may want to show them in the front like that. I use my left hand. And some children prefer to just go down like they're slithering like snakes. I'm happy for that. So it says wave you wave like a snake, making a shape. And some children go on to go like, and I have no problem with that, but I demonstrate and show them the right thing to do. Then after that, we do the song that they love to bits. The snake is in the grass, the snake is in the grass, the snake is in the grass. They love that so much. So moving on. So as you can see, I talked about the handbook already. I talked about the Big Finger Phonics book. Then there's a page in the handbook that the children may engage with. That page is amazing because one, they're learning the formation, they're learning the sound, they're able to name a few things that have that sound. And we did mention that the first set is the at, eep, in. That's the first set you teach. And you may want to zoom in and also say, this is the first sound we're learning. And then eventually you will teach the rest of the sounds, and the children love it and they connect with everything super well. Then, and the good thing about Jolly Phonics, it's multisensory. It appeals to all the children. I have children who like to touch things. They just like to touch flour or rice. We use a lot of rice down here because sometimes flour is people are very sensitive about it, but we can use like the local maize flour. We can use rice. We also make a lot of Play-Doh. So some children really want to touch, some want to play, some learn it. They just come on the freeze and they touch the freeze, and the freeze is the one down here where there's a red circle. Some of them want to touch the freeze, and some of them will just learn as soon as you introduce the sound. So Jolly Phonics allows, and some like the songs. That most of my autistic children love the songs to bits. They come and sing the song. When I ask them, what sound is this? They just do the song again. And luckily the songs are short and snappy, and most of them are to a rhythm that they already know. So they love them to bits.
So Irene, what we
yes.
see here, even in our very first lesson, as
Yes.
Irene spoke through about the 5 skills, you can
Yes.
see that even in our first lesson, we are exploring those.
Yes.
Irene has shown you it's through the using the big book, but also the actions, the fine motor skills, the gross motor skills, but also children who can't write. And that's something important to mention. We're offering them a way to demonstrate their knowledge. And
Yes.
it's so important, isn't it, Irene, that they can make that connection with the sound, but also the shape of the letter.
Yes.
It's this approach, this systematic approach, that even in our first lesson, as Irene has beautifully demonstrated, it's connected to all the senses. And this is how children are learning. And more so children who may need to have more time, and also on a spectrum. So that even those little plus those little letters there that you have, Irene, in that photo for finger tracking, children will remember that, as well as the multisensory activities. So it's very complete, really, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And they make the connections, as you said, and they use all their senses. And sometimes we may make a soup as something, because sometimes when I tell them you have to use all your senses, they're like, are we going to taste anything? And you may want to make a soup, a nice soup that is friendly to your country. So you can do anything with them. So yeah, so then you use all the senses. They can see, they can hear the sound, they can touch something, they can also smell a nice soup and also taste it. So we make sure we do something that they will remember from the sounds. Okay, moving on. So what should I consider as I progress? So as we said, you teach the first sound and make sure the children remember it before you move on to the next sound. And then you will introduce the next sound, which is R in this phrase. And then you keep going back to make sure they remember the first sound, the song, the action, the formation, all the 5 skills. Then you will move forward to the next and the next and the next. And as soon as you've done the first set, we tend to want you to begin to blend, not to wait too long. So we're going to move on into blending. And if you start blending early, it's very, very helpful. First of all, I explain to my class and the children what we mean by blending and segmenting. I just tell them, we have learned some sounds and we want to see if we can make words with these sounds. What sound did we learn? And then they're like, what do you hear? And then we do a lot of blending activities, and then they start making words. Initially, the words may not even make sense. Some may make sense, but provided they are connecting the sounds together and they can say like, it doesn't matter if it means anything. But as we go on, we start really blending with words that make sense. As you can see over here, on the left, I think it's your left as well, it's the left on my computer, we have O and box, sand, cat, tent, and then we have sound buttons over here. So many times we can flick our fingers, we can also blend on our arm. I hope you can see that little beautiful girl using her arm to blend, but we can also use our fingers. Sometimes we blend as robots. We can even blend as the wind. So the children love it. Then you demonstrate what blending is. You can say, and they say sun. You have a picture to help them. And some children yet like to blend with the actions, the actions of the sounds, which is really, really nice. So we then also want them to hear, if I say the word sun, what sounds do you hear? If I say cat, what sounds do you hear? Then we move along. So blending happens immediately if you can, rather than wait so long. So by the time you have so many sounds, they're already into the rhythm. So we're moving on to a page in one of the big books. And that page, the opened up page, is in the big books. And how can we use these pages? Now, we want to ask you, our participants, to put your ideas in the chat. Look at that page carefully for a few seconds. And how would you use that page? We'd like to hear from you. How would you use that page? I hope everybody can
While
see
we're
the page.
waiting for people to put in some excellent ideas,
Yes.
it's worth mentioning about how the teacher's book really does give you all the ideas you need to start in the class, the main teaching aim, and also how to finish. And the one good thing about this first group, as Irene has mentioned, is that the children are only doing the sounds that they have previously learned, and they're
Yes.
only blending, segmenting letters that they are secure with. So we're not
Yes.
asking them to do anything that is not within their learning capacity from the lesson before. And of course, it's teacher-led, and that's the most important thing as well. I noticed in the chat, some of you mentioned you have slow learners. Then you can use the guide to help you navigate what your lesson should look like. So these are really good teacher tools to have in your class toolkit to help with the delivery of the lesson. So let's see, Irene, if anyone has come up with some ideas. I'm just going to
Okay.
the chat. Let's have a look, because these pages have a lot in them. Oh, we connecting the initial sounds with the images, words that have s or in them. Also some blending and cementing, looking at the colors. So we've got some very active teachers here. But
Very nice.
what would you suggest that works in your class?
For me?
Yeah, what works for
Okay,
you?
so yes, the big books, as somebody said, the color, the image, the things that are on the page, the children want to spy and say, I spy. I could say, I spy something that begins with an R sound. What do you see? And it's, oh, or maybe Alfred, maybe Andrew, there's somebody in our class. And then we go on to, oh, I spy with my little eyes. Something that begins with or has in it. They like to play the I Spy game a lot. And also I can put things in a bag. I can put so many things in a bag and I just tell them, close your eyes. I'm going to pull out something, and then I pull out and they know what it is. They try to, what sound am I thinking about in the first phase? As we say, the first set of sounds, only the first set of sound. Eaten, and then they just say, oh, this is a turtle, this is an igloo, this is, and things like that. So the children love the big books to bits. They like to use them. Then as we go on to blend and they see the steep, they may want to say steep. They find little letters. We have some movable letters that they can use to make words. And it doesn't matter, as I said, the words might be meaningful or not meaningful, but provided they can blend, that will be really, really good.
Yeah, we've got a great suggestion here from Jill Bellamy saying that she makes a tissue box into a dice, a magic dice, and roll it as a game. And I can see how you can get children to match up the grapheme on the tissue box and also what's on the page. And more importantly, the children are reading. They're making a conscious decision about that shape and also the sound that it makes, which is so important. So these are really valuable tips that you've handed on, Irene. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we also have a letter sound strips, and the way I use this, usually we play with them. When I've taught a number of sounds beyond the first set, second, maybe third, I may get counters and I just say sounds at random and they have to put it on the right sound. Like I lay them out and then I say, sound, who has found and who finds it quickly. Then goes on to put it onto the letter strip. And eventually when we've taught all the letters, all the sounds, then they can fill up their sound strip And as time goes on, when we've taught even the alternative spellings later on, they can then play with that. But also just for assessment, we may just want to know who has learned the sounds. And somebody did talk about slow learners. Sometimes for you to know if your learners are getting it or some are lagging behind, you have to assess them. And again, in the handbook, this handbook that I said has it all. It has an assessment page somewhere where you just want to do a phonics check and see who has learned the sounds, because you wouldn't know in a group if they're learning the sounds, but you may want to check. I'm trying to find the page. It's disappeared, but it's in this handbook somewhere where you can just do a phonics check and see who has learned their sounds, who is lagging behind, who needs extra help. But I also did mention that it's also good for you to, it's over here. It's a very nice one. I use this page a lot. It's just to check who has learned their sounds and who is able to blend, who is finding it very difficult. But also you can work in smaller groups. If you see that there's a group that's pacing very quickly and they're learning everything quickly and they're blending very fast, that could be a group. And then you may have, in the school that I work for, we get students even in term 3 and you start from the beginning. And then you may have just children who are very, very slow, as you said. They need a lot of review and repetition and practicing and showing them things and going over and over and over. And you can do what you can. If a child doesn't get it, maybe they'll get it after, maybe the year after. But many times with Jolly Phonics specifically, because I've worked with other phonics systems as well, they tend to get it quickly because of the different skills you use. They hear the sound, they do the song, they do the formation, they listen, it's easier for them, and they see, and that the way it has been improved, they see things they know. And in my country, if children don't know something, we can find something that is similar. If we don't do picnics a lot, but we can find something similar to a picnic that they relate to in where you are, and that will make their life even easier. So there's so many, yes.
Sorry, Irene, we had a quite an important message here about homeschooling. And of course, yes, you can use these resources with homeschooling. And we
Very
can
well.
actually have a starter kit or a classroom kit, which has everything that you need to be able to do homeschooling. And for several years now, there has been a lot of associations of homeschooling successfully using Jolly Phonics and Jolly Grammar as part of their core resources to help children develop their English literacy skills. And having all the handbooks is a great asset for parents who are homeschooling or homeschooling groups. So thank you for that question, because
it's a very good question, because I can't say
we
during
often forget about that area of homeschooling, but this is a very successful addition to the homeschooling core resource. Sorry.
Yes, and I should say we saw a lot of that during COVID, where we were just learning at home anyway. And with my youngest child, I did all the phonics with her at home. And of course, when Jolly, the Jolly classroom came, that was super amazing. But if you have some resource, I just had a little bit of resources and it was very successful. Yes, thumbs up for homeschooling, and thank you for asking. So then I wanted to move on to more ideas for blending and segmenting. And as we said, it's very important for you to blend with the sounds you've taught. If you haven't taught the sound yet, hold on, because we want the children to be able to decode, to blend what the sounds that they know. Now, and many times in my classroom, the children say, "Oh, teacher, this is very easy." And I'm like, I'm very happy when it's very easy, when you're finding it easy, rather than them looking and they just don't know the sound and you want them to read a book. So importantly, move at a good pace, but make sure you let the children blend or read the books that they're able to read. So if you've introduced set 1, please work with set 1 books. If you introduce set 1 and 2, then you can work with set 1 and 2 books. But these are part of the new resources that I love so much. I'm using this year. I'm loving them really, because most of these books, the children are able to read the words in them. They're all decodable, which is really nice.
And if you want further tips, have a look at the webinar that was done by Sarah Wernham about the new folk tales. She gives lots of tips in there about reading books and how to use the decodables. So it's well worth looking at the previous webinar, which is on YouTube, for some really good tips for your decodable readers in the classroom. Okay.
Okay, then I just wanted to introduce more. There's so many resources you can use, but blend wheels, phonics blend wheels are also very good. Now with these ones, they spin, you can spin in the middle and they keep, when they spin, they have to read the words. It doesn't matter if it makes sense or not, but provided they're able to blend, and you can see that these are actually at a higher level. That means you've taught more sounds and their sound blends. I could say sn, up, frog. But if you start blending and working with many resources, the children will happily enjoy these as well. So there's so many resources you can use, but we wanted to share just a few for now. Then progression, moving on with teaching. Now, as we've said, you teach a set at a time. You do the first set, second set, and then I'm going to talk about the next set, set 4, which has another sound, which is the A sound. Now, when you look at this, the sound I'm going to discuss, it's in another big book. This big book is big 4. I know it's very big. You may not be able to see it, but again, it has a page with the A sound and pictures on it. Now, the difference with this sound, you see that they're now 2 sounds and they're making 1 sound. So you have the sound A and E, and it's not R-E, but it's saying A. It's saying A. So here is the page. Now, when we get to this sound, we always tell the children there are 2 sounds saying 1 sound. So you have the sound R that they know already, and they have the sound E. Some of them say AE, that sound is AE, and then you're like, no, actually the sound is A, as in the pain in your ear, and we emphasize the A. So that's the action A, like they have a pain in their ear. And the picture talks about going to a doctor. And luckily, most children down here go visit doctors for one reason, just for a checkup. They have a sore throat or their ear is hurting due to some kind of infection. So when we show them the page, we say, what do you see in the page again? And of course, many of my students go into snaky because they see snaky hiding somewhere. But then we look for things that have the A sound in them. We introduce the sound, we show them the action, we do the song, we talk about visiting a doctor and having pain, and some of them know something about the brain and things like that. So in this, as you move on, as you make progress, you will be teaching the digraphs that we call digraphs. That's 2 sounds, just saying 1 sound. And this is the first one. I don't know if people have questions on this, or Yvonne, do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I usually think that before we get to group 4, it's really good to make sure that children are really secure with groups 1 to 3. And that's where Irene mentioned about using the assessment sheet. Just make sure that your children are up to speed, that they've all understand that the sound and the corresponding shape, they can work with that. You've noticed how they're blending and segmenting, because we don't want holes or pockets of information missing as we move on with more complex concepts for the children. So my advice would be that before you go into group 4, just do a little bit of a check in your classroom. You're working with your children all the time, so you kind of know where children are, but it's just through the activities that Irene has mentioned. They're great for evaluation, they're great for assessment. And when you're looking at those cards that may have a CVC word like SAT, you can ask them, what's that middle sound? What's the end sound? Can you do it on your arm? Get them blending and segmenting, get them moving letter tiles around, observing them using the information they have learned in different ways to demonstrate their knowledge. Because Irene, all children have different ways of displaying what they know.
Yes, yes, that is true. And the most amazing thing for me, the children that way usually are slower, tend to get the digraphs quicker. I don't know why, but it does happen. It's happened all the times I've been teaching. I had a child who never remembered the single sound, but when it came to digraphs, they were very quick. And then we used the motivation to go back then to the single sounds. And then by the end of the year, we had met the targets, but it does surprise me a lot. It might be the actions, it might be something about those digraphs that are really make it easy for them. It's amazing. So again, as you said, you scaffold knowledge, you think you have to consider that they've learned the previous sounds, you keep reviewing and checking, and if they've forgotten them, you move back and help them to move forward. I always move forward and then move back. I keep moving forward and then I move back. And at the end of the day, we are all learning to a certain level. Okay.
There is a
Yeah.
question here about the initial sounds and end sounds, but the blends. We're not actually teaching blends at this moment. We're
Not
not
yet.
referring to them as blends. So that's
Mhm.
something we do a bit later on. And that's a bit confusing because some curriculums have syllables, or they
Yeah.
introduce the blends
Mhm.
explicitly quite quickly, snapping phonics, for example. But here
Yeah.
we're talking about two sounds making, two letters making one sound, or having that dot, using that dot to identify it. So it's good to use the teacher's books to have the right terminology, not to
Yeah.
confuse children as well. Sorry,
Yeah.
Irene, off you go.
Okay. Then we are going to move on to how they write. We talked about forming letters. It's always good to show the children how to hold their pen or their marker or their writing tool or a paintbrush. We encourage the tripod grip. Many times they come in with that, then slowly you move on to, you do so many activities, even out of just Jolly Phonics, or you can do other activities that help them to have a good grip, but we encourage them to have that tripod, as you can see it over there. And if they're left-handed, it's that side. My daughter is left-handed, and the froggy legs. And then you go on into, we have these beautiful handwriting books. If you get them someday, you're going to love them. They help them a lot with their writing and their beautiful handwriting and their letter formation, and encourage them to do a tripod. If you keep encouraging them, they'll get it. When I was teaching in year 2, children came in with a pencil grip that you don't want to look at. I think it came from a breakdown in teachers not showing them or demonstrating how to hold a pen or a marker or a pencil. And sometimes it's too late. So we encourage you to do it as quickly as possible so they get their grip. I can't say that every child will get it, because from my long-time experience teaching, some children will have their own grip. At the end of the day, if they're able to write, you've done your role, you've showed them. If it doesn't work, but they're still able to write, don't worry. But importantly, think about the left-handed students and the right-handed students and how easy it will be for them to do a tripod grip. If it doesn't work, it may not, but you've done your part. And many times it works really well on the froggy legs, just for them to have that flexibility when they're doing their letters and all other patterns. Okay. So we have the pupils book. I did talk a little bit about it in the beginning. And this is the A. The action is over there. There's a little beautiful girl there doing the action. So you cup your hand over your ear and you pretend like you're having pain in your ear. So on this page, as you can see, there's a lot to learn. They learn the sounds, they do their handwriting, they review other sounds. They're also blending. And by the time you reach group 4, book 4, they've done so many sounds, so they know how to blend. Maybe they're able to segment and they've learned a lot of vocabulary. But sometimes you might get to that point and you still have students who are still very slow, or they're just coming in new. Would encourage you to go back and work on the sounds with them. You, as I said, if you're in a school like the one I'm in and you're allowed to group students into smaller groups, I do have an assistant who helps me to work with, especially with phonics. You can then group them and work with a group at a time. If a group is struggling or with just one child, you can give them individual attention. And if all this doesn't work, there could be other tweaks you could use. That you could use something else to help them learn. But at this point, usually they have learned quite a number of sounds and they know many things. They have new words you can review. They're doing some formation. They're writing in the air. They're writing on the floor. They're writing on their backs, and it's going really well. And they're joining the letters there. And when you see the letter A joined, somebody will ask, why do you join it up? It helps them to remember that actually that is one sound. There are two sounds, just saying one sound, A, okay? So moving on, as you can see, all this, the arrow shows you that there's so much you can do on this page, and the children love it. And they don't have to do it in one day. They may want to do the top bit and come back to the other bit another day. That is still okay. In my real experience, as in real, the books are there. Some children are ahead, some are just tagging along, some are walking at a pace that you want them to walk, really, and some are saying, I want to move forward, I want to move forward. If we've covered those sounds, I'll let them move forward. If we haven't covered them, I'll just ask them to kindly hold on, because there's so much to do besides phonics. We do other things, but they love the pages. Okay. Did you want to say something else before we go on to tricky words?
Yes, Irene, and also we do have other resources that can fit your teaching dynamic. There are the little workbooks which are aimed at younger children, but also in the phonics handbook we have worksheets. So it really is, although we're showing you a lot of information about the materials, what we're hoping that you'll see is it might resonate with you with thinking that resource will really fit with the dynamic of my teaching, or that resource will work well with my age of students. And there has been some comments about dyslexia as well. And the good thing about looking at a page like this, you can break it down to the ability of the child without overwhelming them. So it's sometimes a good thing for children who are on the spectrum is using something called framing, where you just cover up part of the page, bit of white paper at the top if you want them to focus at the bottom, and you can make it more a focused, intense wrap-around activity where you're working with them where they need that support with the 5 key skills. There's so much you can do with the resources. I could talk about it all day. I'm not allowed, but we don't have enough time. But
We don't.
so the
Right.
diversity of
Okay, we may need to move on. Okay. So we want to say something about tricky words. Some of you may know them as sight words. Now, here you are, you're teaching all the sounds, you're teaching the children to blend, and then there are these words that are not phonetic, and they appear in many of the books. We've said it's good to introduce the decodable books, but I'll be honest with you, in the school that I work for, we do also have books that are not really decodable. There are sight words in there that we call tricky words, as well as decodable words. So then we have to go on to teach the tricky words at the same time. And then the students, the beauty about children, if you explain to them that this is a tricky word, for example, if you're teaching the word I, already they know this as E, that's the sound E, and you tell them actually E is I. You see, because they know the sound already. They're like, now this is I, that's the word I. And I'm glad that's the first word we teach. Is so easy. It's I, and they can connect with it because they say, I am Irene, I am a girl. And then you've already told them the sound E, then you say, okay, now I'm going to teach you some tricky words. And what makes this a tricky word? Because it doesn't say the sound, it actually says the letter name, and it's the word I. And then you move on to teach more, as I will explain further in the slides. You may want to teach the word me, for example. Now they've been blending super well. Is this upside down or is it the right way?
the right way.
Okay, so so you may, and you've told them and you've told them a. Many times they tell me, oh, that's may, and I'm like, no, it's not may. Actually, that's what makes it tricky, because actually this says but then that doesn't say a anymore. The word is me. So then they're like, oh, that's me, very nice. And then you have to display those in class, and you have to flash them in their face and tell them these we learn the way we see them. That's the word me. And there's so many tricky words, as you can see on the tricky word tree, that you teach through the year. And again, you keep reviewing them and showing them all the tricky words. But then we also have, we've told you about the Jolly Freeze. This just shows everything. It's a class resource, and you can use it in many ways, blending, segmenting, and everything. I'll skip that in the interest of time. Then, because we have 2 minutes, is that correct, or one? Or should I just go on?
Over. Don't worry.
Okay, that's all right. So still many more resources that we can use for reading. And as the children begin reading, you want to introduce books to them. And I like the fact that in that picture, the children are pointing at the words they're trying to read. Now, when children are beginning to read, they need to point at the words. slowly and blend. They're still blending. If eventually they know how to read the words without pointing at them, that will be much later. But we encourage them to point at the word, blend, and you read with a child, you can model, give them enough time to read. If the word is difficult, you can help them with the sounds again, with the actions, until when they're able to blend, and give them enough time. Don't rush it. Demonstrate what blending is. Show them how it works. You can use songs. There's so many songs that help you with blending. You can blend as a robot. You can use your arm, as we've said. You can use your fingers to blend, and so much more. Okay. And then there's something there that says reading. When should I start using the decodable readers? Now, as soon as you've taught the first set, as we said before, the first set, you can use decodable readers at that level. You know, you pick the books that have the first 6 sounds that you've taught that are sat at 8 pen. And when you move to the second set, you can also add those onto. It's important for you to use the sounds that the children have been introduced to already and they're familiar with. That will make it easy. And then you keep growing your word bank as you go along. And yes, in the handbook, as I said, it has it all. It has word banks as well. There are word boxes in there that you can use if you're stuck, and that helps a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is,
The
yes,
framework here will, if you look at that diagram on the next slide, Irene.
that one.
Yeah, and generally what we say is that we like to start children when they've got to group 6, where they've got some tricky words and everything. But Irene is correct. We do have the little word books, which are excellent for young learners. But here you have an overview of when we start and how we start.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah, beautiful books. And of course, we've got the folk tales as well to add to that scheme. So it's fantastic. There we go. On cue.
There
Thank
they are.
you. Absolutely
Those are
lovely.
beautiful. Those are very nice as well.
Absolutely beautiful. And I think the one thing is that children have that curiosity with print, which we really want them to have. And more than anything, you can also get children reading decodable sentences that are in the teacher's resources as well. I used to write them on a strip and get them to read so that they're reading the letter shapes and letter sounds that they know, and there is nothing unfamiliar about that, along with the tricky words also. There is a question here that's a common one we get about the alignment with Cambridge. So it's not a 1-for-1 alignment. We don't say that People Book 1 aligns with Starters, Movers, or Flyers, but there are competencies that are within the books that align with what Cambridge is doing. So yes, we can use them very much, and we can help you if you want to know about the alignment, then we can give you some advice on that and how you can use them successfully with Starters, Movers, and Flyers, and also the progression to the B1. So we've had a fantastic morning, Irene, haven't we? And afternoon, and you've done extremely well. And having seen you in action, I know that when you're in a class and with teachers, it really is not only visually fantastic, but also the songs, the movement, and you embrace all of the senses when you're teaching. So thank you very much. And we have people saying thank you.
Oh, thank you, everybody. I'm so humbled and I'm very happy to share my experience with you. This is just the beginning. It's just a snapshot. Maybe next time we'll be sharing much more. Thank you for attending the webinar.
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
And I think more than anything, Irene has given you a realistic idea of how to do things, and also from her point of view as a teacher. So just to finish off, we don't have a webinar next month. We're giving you all a break because we realize Christmas is one of those busy times and you just want to have a break. But we'll be starting the new year full of ideas and also things to get you going with different areas of using the program. So please look out for the social media posts, which will give you an idea of the dates and also the content. And please let us know what you'd like to know about. It's really important that we're listening to you, and we can work with our teachers who are out there who want to know more about the program, and also how we can introduce different things for you to do in the webinar. So Bye for now from everyone. Bye, Irene. It's absolutely lovely.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate it. Bye-bye.
soon. Enjoy the rest of the term, everybody. Bye for
Thank
now.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.